this week's broadcast, we talked to the Port of Amsterdam about its new connection on the New Silk Road. And we also talked to Clemens Forst from Rail Cargo Group about the RailFreight Forward Coalition. In the studio is Arie van Dijk from Pro Media. This is RailFreight Live. Hello everyone. The government of Russia has implemented subsidies for container traffic on transit through the country. The subsidies apply only to local logistics companies and vary from 290 to 860 euros per unit. They are actually a temporary reduction of track access charges for freight trains that carry transit containers. Container trains on the way to the west receive more support. It's not the first time that the Russian government steps in to encourage transit traffic, because in April this year it reduced the rates for transporting empty containers to China with 40%. In this way, it wants to stimulate Eurasian transit traffic through its territory. We already mentioned it last week. The Port of Amsterdam has a new RailFreight connection to Duisburg, which was long a missing link to the port. Duisburg is a hub on the New Silk Road where many trains arrive from or to China. The missing link means that Amsterdam is much better connected to China than ever before. We spoke to Rob Smith, manager of rail, barge and hinterland at the Port of Amsterdam, about the new connection.
I'm deeply convinced that for the next 10 to 15, 20 years, there is no alternative to rail if you want to have
Rob Smith, you're working for the Port of Amsterdam. And there are two new connections to the Port of Amsterdam that ultimately link to China. One was launched via Slavkov to Xi'an, and the other one was launched between Amsterdam and Duisburg. In which sense is this something new for the port?
Well, thank you. Thank you for your questions. Well, the connection from Amsterdam to Duisburg by rail is brand new. It didn't exist before. In fact, it was a missing link in the network of Samskip and Nunner. Nunner operates the weekly trains from the Chinese cities of Xi'an and Changsha to Duisburg. And for Samskip, the new shuttle is a connection to its short sea services to the UK and the Norwegian west coast. So, this new service will also strengthen the intermodal service via Amsterdam beyond Duisburg to Sweden, to Denmark, Poland, Italy, and Turkey. So we are very glad with this new service. And another partner in this cooperation is Distrirail. Distrirail provides the rail haulage service. And in the new connection, the intermodal terminals which are involved are the TMA terminal and the Samskip terminal in Duisburg. Well, you mentioned also Slavkov. Well, Slavkov is an important already existing transfer point on the routes of one of the routes from Duisburg to the various destinations in China. So this is not really new.
Okay. And in which way is the Port of Amsterdam involved in these projects?
Well, from the beginning of this initiative, we strive to play an active role, which suited our role as a port authority. So we have been involved to get the several parties around the table to get in touch with each other. You cannot do this on your own. And for instance, our relation with our German friends in Duisburg played an important role to get the shuttle done.
And an active role means that you find it important to be connected. So can you explain what is the importance of being connected to China for the Port of Amsterdam?
Well, for us as a major seaport, intermodal transport connections to the hinterland are very important. The better the intermodal connectivity of our port, the higher our port value for our logistical and industrial companies located in our port area. So therefore, the rail connections with China via Duisburg are very welcome. And it's an important addition option next to the sea and air freight options. And furthermore, rail is, of course, a very sustainable, safe, and efficient mode of transport, and has a key priority in the strategic agenda of the port of Amsterdam.
And you said the connection via Slavkov already existed. How long did it exist?
It exists for a couple of years. I don't know exactly the period, but it's not directly linked to Amsterdam. It was already an existing point in the route to China and Western Europe.
Yeah, and which other connections do you have between Amsterdam and China?
Well, this is the major via Duiven is the one and only direct connection to China. And of course, we have several destinations, or Nunner has several destinations in China, but via Duisburg is the connection from Amsterdam.
Until now, there was the connection between Amsterdam and Duisburg was mostly done by trucks, and then from Duisburg there are plenty of connections. Why is it that the direct train connection between Duisburg and Amsterdam started now and not earlier?
Well, it's because it's a very short distance, of course, so you have to compete with the low truck costs. And like I said, it is a missing link in a broadened network from the short sea connections to the UK and Norwegian. The time was not right to get this cargo on the train, like with a rail service. So together with Samskip and other things came together, and enough cargo to get it on a rail service.
Yeah, and you're saying that it was hard to compete with the trucking prices. Is that different now?
Well, it's still hard to compete, but you can compete because it's a part of a broader network. Only the connection between Duisburg and Amsterdam by rail is too small. So that's why it's important to get it connected to China, and on the other hand to the other connections which I mentioned before.
Yeah. Do you think it's important for a Western European port to be connected to China by rail?
Yeah, it's very important. Shippers like to have various alternatives to get goods from A to B by barge, by sea, by road, but also by rail. You see shortages in drivers for the trucks. You see problems at the water levels for the barge transports. So there are many factors which have an influence on this.
But do you not compete with yourself when it comes to the sea-going vessels to China or from China?
Well, Amsterdam plays a specific role in the intermodal transport. We aim to be a real short sea port, so with connection to the UK, Norwegian west coast. So it's really strengthened our role as an intermodal hub, because we don't have these big vessels from China directly to Amsterdam. So no, it is not competing with the services already existing on Amsterdam.
Okay, so in that way, your role is completely different from the port of Rotterdam, for example.
Yeah, we are a different port in Rotterdam. Like I said, we are a niche player in the container intermodal services. we aim on the shortened distances for the sea. But for the hinterland, China is a very important area, of course.
Yeah. So the UK connection is very important. Do you plan to exploit this further with these new train connections?
Yes, of course. We together with our partners, Skip and Nunno, we look for other direct ways, but we do things one at a time. So first this service, and to expand the frequency of this service, and furthermore we look for other direct destinations.
A whole other topic is that of the new Silk Road in Amsterdam, because we are also going to be in Amsterdam. This is quite good news for us, isn't it?
For sure, yes, this is a very good news. Amsterdam, of course, one of the biggest ports of North Europe and a very important port. And the connection with the Silk Road was there for a longer period of time, but now it's getting so extensive attention, and you see really it's growing. So that's a very good development. And we look forward to having our first European Silk Road Summit in Amsterdam.
Yeah, and is that a coincidence that we're there and this news comes up?
Yeah, for sure it's a coincidence, because I didn't plan it and I don't have that kind of power in the business. But of course we were looking for, Corona hit the business, and we were looking to go abroad with the European Silk Road Summit. For some years we've been developing this conference and this also networking hub for Silk Road professionals. And now we were planning to go to Duisburg, but of course due to Corona and had hit there specifically hard, we decided to move the venue to Amsterdam. And now you see all kind of developments. We're in motion, but they're speeding up. So now it all comes together perfectly. Yeah,
and Samskip also launched a new service a little bit after, or maybe in response even to this. So they launched a new short sea connection to the UK. It seems that this short sea connection is very important as well, because it's an extension to the new Silk Road, and now everything comes together, as you said.
Yeah, you see the whole network of the Silk Road is developing. Of course, we spoke earlier about this, but in the past there was one connection between China and Europe, and now it's developing like a whole grid throughout Europe and also Asia. So it's very good to see it's getting more redundant, more strong, and now more and more shippers are choosing for the Silk Road. Yeah. And I think the Corona crisis showed that the Silk Road is strong and that it is reliable also. So the traffic is increasing, although global freight transport is a little bit declining, but the Silk Road remains growing. So I understand that a lot of people are interested in the developments and are looking forward to our event.
Yeah, and the first time the event was held was in Utrecht in the Netherlands. Then there was Tilburg, then there was Venlo, and now the 4th edition is in Amsterdam. So it's again a home game for ProMedia at least.
Of course, yes.
And what's on the program this year?
Yeah, on the program we have several topics. We're going to talk, of course, about the network of connections. How are the ports anticipating on the Silk Road? It's very important. But also we really want to talk about what happened in the last couple of months. Why is the Silk Road so strong, and how is it able to compete in this fashion? Of course, there are also challenges, some border crossings, customs issues. How can we improve that? And we're very looking forward to the practical cases of our shippers. I believe Hugo Boss is coming, and I heard some other great names who are really going to show us the insight why they choose the Silk Road and why not air freight or ocean freight, or why they use it as an addition on their current supply chains. I think there's going to be a lot of nice insights and a lot of new topics this year for our participants.
And I saw something about the Chinese cooperation. There is a parallel event in China, and we're going to host it. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes, of course. So we're with RailFreight Live. RailFreight.com is a very important website for us. And recently we launched, as we earlier discussed, also RailFreight CN, our Chinese version. And we are looking to build up the business in China also, because there it's also gaining importance in the connection. So now we are looking to work together with the local business there, and now there will be an event, like you said, in Amsterdam, but also in China. We are calling that the multi-hub, real logistical term, so it's very fitting. Also a multi-hub event, so it will be in China. The Chinese participants and stakeholders can come together in Amsterdam, the European stakeholders, and so we connect those two worlds. And also the complete event, of course, like this, will be broadcasted.
Yeah, and it's on the 10th and 11th of November.
Exactly, 10th and 11th of November.
Registration is already open?
I believe so, yes, the registration is already coming in.
Okay. Right, and then whole other thing is that next week already we are in Poznan in Poland.
Yes.
Which event is that?
Yeah, that's the RailFreight Summit. That's the home event of the RailFreight. Of course, Middle Europe is very hard developing on freight, and especially RailFreight is a very important modality in that respective. And well, in the last couple of years, we've seen that developing quite fast. We've been to Poland a couple of times before. We went to Wrocław, we went to Gdansk. Now we are going to Poznan to really connect the logistical community from Poland. And also in Corona, of course, again, disrupted a lot of development and a lot of events. But this is the first event now that will take place, and we're very excited to share with the people that's completely sold out. We have a full house, of course, within the Corona measurements, so we have to keep 6 feet distance. But we've got a maximum of participants. So a lot of people from Poland, but also some guests from Germany and Austria and the Netherlands, of course. And yeah, really looking forward to talking about what's going on there. Yeah.
So when you say sold out, does it mean that people cannot attend anymore?
Well, they cannot attend physically because we're really serious about the measurements from the government, of course, in perspective of Corona. But it's still possible to buy online tickets. So we got a likewise big audience who will watch it online. And you can buy an online ticket and view it as if you were there. It's not just a webcam. We've got a complete studio there with professional cameras, and you really can attend as if you were there.
Yes. Okay, now we're all looking forward to that, I suppose. So we'll be broadcasting here, I think, as well, from there in RailFreight Live. Next week you can all see what happened there in RailFreight Live. And of course you can still buy the live stream ticket if you want to be there.
And I believe you'll be moderating it yourself.
Yes, with Onno de Jong, who was here a few weeks ago. We'll do the co-moderation, and that's always a very nice experience. We make a good team, and we're looking forward to it.
And do you have any topics you look forward to specifically?
Yes, I think the first session about Poland itself is always very interesting, because a lot of comments and feedback comes from the audience. The last time we did that, there was we went well into the lunchtime, and nobody minded, because they all wanted to know more about how can we solve these bottlenecks in Poland. And it seems very relevant. This year we have the Office of Transport there and the representative there, so people can ask him questions, but we will also have a debate about how to solve these bottlenecks, and things that people always talk about, hopefully will now come closer to a solution.
Great. Well, I'm happy we can deliver participation on that.
Yes. Okay. Well, a whole other topic is that of sustainability in the rail freight sector. And if there is one person who speaks of sustainability, it's Clemens Forst. And he's not only the CEO of Rail Cargo Group from OBB, but he's also one of the founders of the Rail Freight Forward Coalition. We asked him about the latest developments in Europe and in Austria in particular.
I'm deeply convinced that for the next 10 to 15, 20 years, there is no alternative to rail if you want to have sustainable land transport. Yes, there is lots of R&D and developments going on in road transport if we talk about hydrogen truck, if we talk about hybrid trucks or electromobile trucks, but that's still currently in development. That needs to be tested, that needs to be sort of produced, and it needs really to penetrate the market. And so we at least have 10 years where there's no viable alternative to rail in terms of sustainable land transport. At the same time, pre-COVID, but also through COVID, and especially post-COVID, the whole topic of climate change, of Paris goals, is extremely important, and I think it's our biggest challenge we have as a society, as an economy, as humanity, and therefore I'm personally strongly believe that the 2020s is sort of the renaissance of rail in general, but especially also of rail transport. And that's something that's a mission, it's a purpose which very much motivates us, and where we really want to play a role, where we want to offer our services to the European economy, to the European society. And that's why sort of sustainability is essentially what drives us here.
Yeah. And Austria is a good example because it has an already almost 30% share for rail freight, and in Europe it's 18%. That's quite a difference. How can you explain that Austria is doing better in this regard?
Let me maybe go one step back and sort of list the three prerequisites that we, me personally, but also the whole Rail Freight Forward Coalition, believe the three prerequisites we need for more rail freight in Europe, right? And by the way, there's one box which Austria is ticking extremely well, and that's the main reason we have this high modal share. But let me start with the first reason, the first lever. The first lever is we as RUs, as rail operators, have to do our homework. Yeah, we have to get better and better, be it digitalization, be it quality, be it customer centricity, be it innovative products, and so on and so forth. So we have to offer competitive products, and we have to get better at what we are doing. We are doing a lot. We are proud of what has been achieved in the last years, but there is still more to be done. First lever. Second lever refers to interoperability, to having a high performing infrastructure. So there, our demand is running a train through Europe should be as easy as going by truck. Yeah? And due to many reasons, and we've talked about this before, the European rail freight landscape or rail infrastructure landscape is extremely fragmented, and that makes running a train through Europe extremely cumbersome. And then as a third reason, a third lever we need to sort of increase the modal share of rail in Europe and everywhere, also in Austria, and that's a fair competitive landscape. And that's what we mean by that is that the current regulatory regime, the current taxation regime, the current road access regime drastically favors road. So if you really compare road transport and rail transport, in many cases, or in too many cases, road transport is cheaper, and the reasons are manifold. The reasons start with the fact that we pay track access charges on every single mile we are running. Road is paying track access only on highways. That then goes further to the fact of social standards for truck drivers versus train drivers. That goes then also in the internalization of external costs. So if you go by a road, there's lots of emissions, there's congestion costs, there is accident costs, and so on, which are much lower by a multiple of depends obviously on the country and on the type of emission. But in terms of CO2 in Austria, it's a factor of 44 because we have clean energy. In Europe, it's still a factor of 9. So that's really something where road is favored. And that leads obviously to a high modal share of road. The box that Austria is ticking, and that's predominantly responsible for our 30% modal share of rail, is that we have a subsidy scheme, which is sort of run by the European Commission and notified by the European Commission, where rail freight is supported in some areas to achieve competitive prices. So especially for single wagon load transports, for intermodal transports, and also for rolling road transports, rail operators in Austria get a subsidy to be able to offer at competitive prices. And that's, I think, to a large extent, the explanation of the difference between 18% and 30%.
Yes, and now Austria is also one of the few countries who has suggested to subsidize rail freight in these difficult times.
Yeah.
Is the government more favorable towards rail? Is that something, or is it because the corridor that runs through your country, is the landscape offering better conditions? How can we see that?
Well, I think in the long term, in Austria, we are blessed that we have had really a succession of governments independent of sort of political orientation that has really focused on sustainable transport policy. And it's over the last 10, 20 plus years. Yeah. And I think that's definitely something where Austria stands out, but also, for example, Switzerland definitely also. Yeah. If we really look at 2020, but also 2019, partly 2018, what I do observe is that more and more European countries jump on that train. Yeah, for example, Germany has essentially halved the track access fees in 2018 for rail freight. Yeah, other countries are sort of introducing subsidy schemes and so on and so forth. So part of the reason why I'm so convinced that we are sort of at the beginning of the renaissance of rail freight is that I see a convergence of many trends, namely that sort of the whole climate discussion, the realization of many governments that sort of rail is important, not just for climate reasons, but also for congestion reasons, for road safety reasons, for many other reasons, for landscape use reasons, for example. And then thirdly, railway operators really getting better and better at what they are doing, getting more and more modern. This applies to the whole sector, and obviously our ambition is that it especially applies to us.
Yeah, and you've joined hands in the RailFreight Forward coalition, so you're working together on this. What's the latest that has been achieved by this RailFreight Forward coalition?
So the latest that has been achieved, and this was now in the first half of this year, despite all restrictions due to the COVID pandemic, was that we as a RailFreight Forward coalition have really proposed a holistic set of changes on the technology landscape required to really make a step change for rail freight in Europe. So one of them we have just discussed, that's a digital automatic coupling. Another one is digital platforms where we as railway operators exchange especially operational data to sort of increase operations, but that also very much goes in the direction of infrastructure, where we are talking about digital infrastructure being ERTMS, being digital or live digital capacity booking, and then ultimately leads into ATO, so automated driving further down the road. So that's really a holistic set of levers that we have jointly compiled, that we have jointly described, where we have jointly developed a business case, and where we are now, again, jointly as a sector, as a coalition, are in discussion with the European, very good discussions, by the way, with the European Commission to really put that agenda forward in the context of the Green Deal.
Yeah, and what I hear is a lot of discussion, a lot of planning, a lot of almost, but is there something already implemented that we can show as an example?
You were just asking about the latest developments. If you talk about the sort of the achievements of RailFreight Forward, we founded ourselves, or we were founded in 2018. In 2019, something you can definitely see, or where you can see lots of videos, is the whole Noah's Train initiative, where sort of we created the longest artwork, which was a train with beautifully designed containers, which went around Europe, and they sort of got lots of attention in many European capitals. And then also in this phase, we as a RailFreight Forward coalition worked intensively on projects we could to a large extent work on ourselves. So unified braking schemes, improved operations across borders, working with infrastructure managers on timetabling issues, TTR. So that's definitely something which happened in this whole period, which happened in the pre-COVID period, or also in the pre-Green Deal period, where we were very much focused on creating awareness, creating policy support, and doing projects really driven by ourselves, such as the ones I just described. And then in the Green Deal area, which essentially was then called out in 2019, since then, and now very much into 2020, we are really working together with the European Commission to offer solution for the Green Deal, which then are obviously bigger ticket items. That we really talk about billions of euros for some of the initiatives, like the automatic coupling, like the digital infrastructure. which we now want to realize going forward in the course or in the framework of the Green Deal.
Yeah. And the last question, maybe hard to answer, but in which run or which time frame do you expect to see changes in that 18% model share for RailFreight? Is it something we should look at for the next 10 years or the next 5 years?
So our strategic goal as a RailFreight Forward initiative is to have 30% of modal share by 2030. And I'm deeply convinced that this is possible. I'm especially deeply convinced in the context of the Green Deal and these technological step changes I was just at least to some extent referring to. That will not be a linear development because it takes time to put these changes into place. You won't be able to benchmark from 18 to 30 sort of in a linear development, but that's definitely something you will be able to observe very clearly in the second half of this decade.
Yes, and that was Clemens Forst from Rail Cargo Group. And with that, we've come to an end of this week's RailFreight Live. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow our website for the latest news in the international railway industry. We look forward to seeing you next week. Goodbye.